This podcast is sponsored by Uncana, trusted natural solutions. Uncana is a leading voice of advocacy for CBD in the veteran, LEO, and federal communities. Veteran-owned and operated, the Uncana team is actively fighting for DoD access to CBD with political pressure, community support, and a simple message. #OpNatural. Uncana is vertically integrated with industry leaders from seed to sell, supplying premium, small batch products to America's best. Use code MENTORS4MIL at checkout at uncana.com to receive your amazing discount. Read the Mentors for Military disclaimer at mentorsformilitary.com/disclaimer. This is the Mentors for Military podcast. I figure what we do is we kick the podcast off with you and Mike, since Lane, you and Mike have history that goes back, but maybe it's a bit about, first off, where did you come from originally, to get into the military, and then your career path and everything that led you up to meeting Mike, and then your time together. But you guys have known each other for a number of years because you served together within the same unit.
I would, together is kind of loose, but yeah, he's my battalion command sergeant major. So but yeah, definitely.
So,
and it'd be kind of interesting to see what Mike has to say on his perspective of those times and since then. So it'll be fun conversation.
I don't have a lot of comment on times and stuff, and I don't tell stories about guys that have worked with me, as long as they don't tell stories about me. But I do remember, what I remember more than anything is after we were both out, you were working on a project, you were writing something, putting something together on high performance learning strategies. I think it was at the same time that I was doing my graduate research, and we kind of collaborated back and forth on your project in that manner. And I don't know how far you took that with increased freedom or anything like that, but I'd be interested to hear kind of where you took. I don't know, Robert, you might have to cut something back in, but I'd be interested to hear from Lane on where he took that after he got out of the military and really started to transition into what his passion was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
Yeah, go for it.
It's so I contacted Mike. I'd always respected him as a leader and saw the things that he was doing post-military, and you can just kind of tell just by what they talk about, what they post about, what they're passionate about, their actions, behaviors, and it just exudes their character. And I reached out to Mike because I knew that he was that kind of guy that would help a younger fella out. And I got out of the military in 2017 and started trying different things, started experimenting with different projects, endeavors, businesses, and so one of the ideas that I had was, trying to translate this high performance mindset from the special forces into something that is bite-sizable to those that may not have served in special operations or even in the military, and to take those high performance strategies, tactics, and put a simple framework to it. And that's why I contacted Mike to bounce some ideas off of it. And so I sent it to him, and he gave me some incredible feedback, and grateful that he would even just come back and reach out to me. And then a lot of things happened since then that we can talk about.
Yeah. Well, I want to say real quick that I still have a copy of that. And as part of coaching kids in high school, you can never get away, I think, of trying to teach them to have an elite mindset, right? What is it to be elite? And there's a lot of good things in that document that you originally put together that's easily translatable to I guess, performance coaching. And I just wanted you to know, Lane, for me, I use it all the time.
Awesome. Yeah. Great feedback.
Yeah.
And it's, that kind of same framework I've used in entrepreneurship and performance mindset post that document. Because I was planning on putting it together and kind of creating a course out of it. but now it's just part of my coaching, or I don't know if you could call it mentoring, but being able to help business owners, especially veteran entrepreneurs, to excel in business. And of course, something that Robert and I were talking about before was putting a little purpose, or putting a lot of purpose on the back end, and having that as your chief aim, so to speak, and applying the techniques of high performance strategies and mindset on that path. And that's what I'm really passionate about today, is mixing that high performance mindset in business and putting it towards a direction to achieve impact, to be able to have a community around you that is doing some great shit in life, basically.
So let's dive into that a little bit more, since Mike, you actually mentioned that you had used some of it with your youth and what you're doing as far as a coach in football. Last week, we had JB Spiso on the podcast, former Ranger. He's done a lot of amazing things as either a life coach or as a trainer. He worked a lot with professionals as well as student athletes at West Point, and he talked a lot about warriors leading warriors. And, how important it is to create that kind of mindset, and that a warrior mindset doesn't necessarily have to be the Spartan 300, and those types of things. It's more about just, living a good, purpose-filled life, and, having the right mindset and those types of things. So I'm curious, since we touched on it slightly, what do you consider to be a high-performance mindset? If somebody said, okay, listen, I hear what you're talking about. You mentioned those terms, but if you break it down by definition, what does it take? What is that mindset?
Yeah, so for me, it's being ultra focused on where you want to go. And it's not about being the most efficient, but understanding exactly the path that you want to take, and then basically putting blinders on those other things that aren't part of that purpose, that mission, and that path that you're creating for yourself. Because so many people get distracted by social media, advice from people that don't exactly know how to give advice, because a lot of people are giving advice that they themselves wish they had, as far as, I'm going to tell you what your path is, versus let me extract the path out of yourself, because you're only going to know what your path lies, because you know yourself best, whether you know that right now or not. Mm-hmm. A good mentor, a good coach is going to help extract that greatness that's already within you. And to tell somebody this is what you should do, as far as this is the path, that's not my practice. My practice is to help them extract that so that they can take their own path and move forward with the high performance mindset that's aimed at that purposeful mission in life.
We did an episode a long time ago on coach versus mentor, and there's a lot of what you just said. Many times a coach is the person that actually, has the playbook, has the direction, and is telling you where to go and what to do. Whereas a mentor, to your point, is somebody who listens a lot more than provides, a lot of guidance or direction. They're wanting you to figure that out by bringing those qualities or that thought process that you have, and to what you think you should do. And I think that's much of what the difference is. And I think people struggle with that, because at times you may be a coach and a mentor at the same time frame, but you never want to force your beliefs, your opinions, and everything else on somebody else, because either you didn't choose those options, or because you feel like they should follow what you're saying. Now you're not being a mentor anymore. Yeah,
exactly. 100%.
Yeah. And so, Mike, you've used a lot of this within, coaching your young people. What are some of the things that you've taught them through this process that, about how a high performance mindset will get them through what they're getting ready to experience?
So two things really come to mind, Robert, from my perspective, and one of them is kind of counterintuitive to being a guy in the Army, a former Green Beret, and that's within at least our community lane, there's a fear of failure, right? Nobody wants to be seen as the weak guy. Nobody falls out of PT. Nobody wants to fail a school. And kind of the flip side from any type of really elite performance is you have got to embrace failure. You've got to make mistakes. And you've got to be able to reflect on those mistakes to learn from them in order to improve. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to be as good as you are, but you're not going to improve. You're not going to get any better. And something that my first team sergeant in 10th Group told me when I was learning to ski is, and I always remember the quote is, if you're not falling down, you're not skiing hard enough, right? I learned to ski in the Army. I learned to ski in 10th Group, and I got to a point to where I was comfortable skiing. I was comfortable skiing with equipment, but I didn't really want to go out and do some of the really hard tree skiing, helicopter skiing, and stuff that's in, steep and deep terrain. And I'll always remember Rex telling me, man, if you're not falling down, you're not skiing hard enough. And I think in any type of performance coaching, it goes really the same way. If you aren't failing, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not pushing yourself and you're not learning, you're not adapting to the environment. And then the second thing that really comes out, and I think that this is kind of innate again to being an SF guy and teaching our partner nation forces how to become better. And that's you've really got to slow down and do the small things very, very well. So Lane in his document talks a lot about, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell's, 10,000 hours. A number of times that you got to practice things over and over and over again. So I do the same thing when I'm teaching or installing an offense or working, specific positional things for an individual group. We do things over and over and over again to try to do them at the very, very basic level. And I think that, the best military units in the Army, whether it's special operations or conventional forces, they do the basic things better than anybody else. They don't do the high-speed things. You don't need all these crazy plays in football to be successful. You need to go on the football field and perform your basic job better than the guy in front of you for 3 seconds every time the ball is snapped. So that's what we work on. I mean, accepting failure, trying to learn from mistakes, and then practicing the basics very, very well.
It's too funny. You actually just mentioned the 3 seconds. While you were talking, I actually started writing down a few things that I wanted to cover. And one of the things was that, a coach that I remember said that very same thing, that, listen, you've got to just give your best for 3 seconds. Play as hard as you can for those 3 seconds. And if you fail, or if something happens and you did a miscue, and you did something wrong, you've got to shake it off faster than that, because you got to get your mind back into the game. And so I think those lessons, Mike, as you're trying to teach these kids, it's not just for the position, it's not just for football, it's in life.
No, you're right. I think, saying shake it off, there's another quick lesson that always comes to mind from when I went to sniper school. You're going to miss the target, right? And if you miss the target, Lane, have you been a SOTIC? I don't remember.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you miss the target. If you're focusing on that last shot, when you're getting ready to make your next shot, it's going to affect what you do for the next shot. So that last shot's gone. It's out the barrel. Forget about it. And that's what I tell kids. You miss a blocking assignment, right? You have a bad play. If you continue to think about that, it's going to affect you for the next 3-4 plays, and it's going to compound your performance, and then you're going to have a bad quarter or a bad game, ultimately probably want to sit out. You've got to forget about it. The next play is going to come in, be a great play. It's the same lesson, right? You have a great play. You've got to forget about that one too, because all you have to worry about when that next play is called is the 3 seconds and the assignment that you've got to do for that play.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And being able to let go of that past, let's call it failure, but it's just an experience that which you can learn from, and to be able to let it go and then continue to move forward in the direction or the mission that you're heading towards, I think is key. And that's what I see over and over and over. Stephen Kuhn, he was just on this podcast recently, and him and I, we're leaders of a veteran entrepreneur community online called the Vetpreneur Tribe. And we have about 14,000 veteran entrepreneurs, all different branches, all different businesses, industries of business. And over and over and over, we see them not mastering the basics, not mastering the fundamentals. They want to go out for these techniques, these advanced strategies, but then they don't even know what problem they solve in business. They don't know what they're providing for their customer. They don't know exactly what they stand for as far as principles and values of their business. And just like special forces, they're master of the basics, and then you can add on the quote advanced stuff, but only when you have that foundation solid. And it doesn't matter if it's life, business, or anywhere in between, is that mastering those basics is the first step.
Yeah.
I think that foundation you're talking about there, Lane, is the key to it. And the problem these days, everybody wants the life hack. They want the quick route to get to the top, to the fastest method of making money, being successful, whatever it is in life. And you can't just get yourself to the top instantly from the bottom. You've got to put the groundwork in, and really the groundwork, the fundamentals are those basics, and learning the basic things, how to do them really, really well. And they're almost muscle memory. If you talk about a physical activity, you just drill it over and over and over again, and it becomes second nature to you. And those basics is what will carry you through. And like you said, you can build on top of those then and become more advanced at whatever it is in life.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that being as intentional as possible is the recipe for success, because there's so many people taking a lot of action, let's call it hustling, that they don't actually know where they're going. They don't know what these actions and things that they're doing will get them. And the more intentional that you are about, why the hell am I doing this thing that I'm doing right now, and asking that question, and taking an honest look and saying, all right, well, maybe I don't know what the hell this is. And so maybe I need to get a mentor. Maybe I need to talk to somebody that's been there, done that. But the question is, or the focus is, be as intentional as possible with every moment of your day. And not to say that you have to be efficient. It's just that if you're going to have fun, that's your intention, is to have fun. If you're going to crush it in business, if you're going to crush it on the field, if you're going to, whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. But as long as that you know exactly why you're doing that, you're gonna crush life and everything in between.
Yeah. When you say why you're doing it, that's the key, right? So you got to understand your why, and that's your passion or your drive. So what is it, the reason why you're wanting to do this and be successful, or why is it so important to you? What do you believe at the end game you're actually going to see once you achieve this? You got to visualize it. You got to understand it. And that's what a lot of good mentors actually do. When you say, life coach or business coach or something of that nature, I can't tell you how many great successful people have actually had a life coach. And I had one of those, and she didn't actually like to be called that term because, there was a bit of, everybody's calling themselves a life coach, let's face it. And she had a lot more of the skills necessary from her education and training that was beyond just a life coach. And she was someone that helped me so much in understanding who I was, and actually the things that I started letting go that I should have kept within that shorter circle, and I forgot about those things. And she reminded me, as I began to talk about my past, how important those things actually were, and that because I've excluded them is the reason why I feel a little bit like I'm off the track. And so I need to bring those back into my life so I can get back in the right space. It was such a powerful statement that actually probably took me about 3 to 6 months of working with her for me to understand those concerns or those things that were going on within my life, because it wasn't an easy path to get there. It wasn't a one meeting and this is your challenge, or these are the things that you need to work on. Like you were talking about in the very beginning, it was a lot of, hey, I want you to think about these things that you said. Next week, I want you to do this exercise. So next week we can talk about that, because she wanted me to figure it out rather than telling me what I was probably doing wrong. Powerful.
Yeah. And questions.
Yeah.
Those that have been there know the questions to ask, whether it's, leaders that have been there, done that, people that have life experience, business experience, or whatever, that they know the right questions to ask. And that's the thing that they bring to the table. But what you have to bring on the other side is, I got to answer honestly. Yes. And not give the surface level answer that I think everybody's looking for. And that takes a lot of internal courage to be able to say, this is actually what I want to do. And it's actually against the grain, because not many people in my path or career or life, style, that they hardly ever take this path. But I got to be honest with myself, and I got to show the courage to actually follow that path that I know that I need to take.
Yeah. In the beginning, I think she was shocked that I was actually going through the exercises and applying, that much effort, to be honest with you, because to your point, you may give somebody an assignment, you may ask them questions, but if they're just responding because they're trying to fill the void, or they're going through the motions, then it's not going to be impactful.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I think that, trying to find the right individual to give you that coaching and mentoring is part of the challenge too. You're going to have to sometimes go outside of your circle in order to find those influencers and those individuals who've had the experience. And some people, it's very hard to do that because their circle of 5 or circle of 10 friends or something may not even know somebody with that type of depth and experience that you're looking for. So that becomes a challenge too. I happen to be very lucky in that it was part of a career path that I was on in which the company actually assigned me this individual. And at first I went in kicking and screaming and thinking I didn't need to talk to her. And I came out, like really awake within 30 minutes of talking with her. And I remember phoning my wife and I told her, I said, listen, I was expecting to tell you this is a bunch of hokey stuff and I don't need this and all that like I did going in. But I'm going to tell you, I felt like somebody just opened up my chest, my heart, my ears, everything, and, reached down into my soul and my being and really started getting me focused on, wow, this is right now where I need to be. And I need to be listening to this person because obviously they're going to have the guidance to get me where I need to go.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to mindset and, what we continue to focus on and believe, that's what's going to start happening in our life. And, the high performer, he or she's like, you know what, I'm going to go fucking do that thing. And nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to find the right people. I'm going to find the right strategies, techniques, and I'm going to crush it. And that mindset of just being singularly focused on the milestone or the outcome that you're looking for, that's the mindset of a high performer. And, you gotta just be relentless, and that's what I want to go after. But that's the vehicle to get there, the high performance mindset. How do you find the direction? And that's the purpose thing that we're talking about. That's the questions that a mentor would ask you, and you have to be diligent and honest with yourself to find out what that path looks like for you.
And this is probably, Mike, as a coach, when you're teaching these types of things to your kids, I can only imagine that some are going to be really receptive and some are probably not going to embrace it, or maybe even more or not, just because, again, they're a young kid. They got so many things on the brain. They're not thinking of somebody truly getting inside of them and teaching them a life lesson here. They're thinking you're teaching them how to play this position. That's it.
I think also, to at least from working with a lot of kids, I think that it's really easy to have a I'm never going to quit mentality when you have experienced a deal of success, right?
Right.
You've seen what success looks like. You've fought through some adversity and you've still been successful. A lot of these kids don't have that. A lot of these kids come from challenged, disenfranchised backgrounds. I mean, look at what's going on in America today and think about what an average diverse classroom looks like and what's going on off the football field every day. A lot of kids in America don't have positive role models in their life, and they don't experience success on a day-to-day basis. So as a coach, it's my job to set that success up. They can see it in the classroom, they can see it on the football field, and as they start experiencing that success as a freshman or as a sophomore in high school, as they become a little bit better in a position, Robert, right? And they've got something to draw from where they've missed an assignment and the world didn't end, right? And they hit it the next time and boom, they bust an 80-yard run. Or you get way behind in a football game and claw your way back and win that game. All it takes is one time to have that success. And it's on your memory now. When the chips are down, as you get a little bit further along in life, that you've got some point of reference where you can become successful. I mean, think about all the things, the challenges that we do in the Army they're set up. Nothing in the Army is designed for you to fail, right? Everything is really designed to pass people. We wouldn't have an institution in the United States Army if we failed everybody. That mentality that I'm from the last hard class and all of you guys suck that come after me. That's because we've experienced success. right? That we kind of elevate that thinking, and now nothing is going to beat us. So I think it's my responsibility, particularly working with the 14, 15-year-old group, to find that, to find it in practice, to find challenging, times in a game. I'll tell a quick story, and Robert, I'm sure I've told you this before. My second year coaching, I was the head coach for the first year. We got behind by 40 points in the first half of a football game against a 5A school in Denver that had 3 freshman football teams. There were more linemen on that football field than I had on the entire football team. And we're talking kids, 5,000 kids in a school. When they travel their A-list, and everybody else plays inside the district up there in Denver. And we got behind by 40 points in the first half. And that football coach on the other side took all of those starters out at halftime, and he put his other team in, right? And that other team was on par with us. Like, he had a whole group of ringers that he would travel, and he was going to win his football game. They're undefeated every year. And we beat that football team 28-0 in the second half. My same kids who were tired and got beat up all the first half. And I told some silly combat story at halftime and get them all fired up. And they go back in there, and we kick off the football, and we knock a kid down. He fumbles the football on the opening kickoff in the end zone. We recover it for a touchdown and set the tone to win that second half. And that's all I said. Let's win the second half, 28-0. You'd have thought those kids won that football game on the bus ride home. And that's something that for the rest of their lives, those kids will look back on. Man, I was down and I didn't fucking quit, right? And I think it's my responsibility to set that up and teach them.
Now you got to tell us the story.
That was the story.
No, what was the halftime story?
Oh, I don't know. It might have been that DSC story. I forget the guy's name. I can't pronounce it. Lane, you might remember his name. There was a 3rd Battalion guy in Iraq who objective went bad. He ends up getting shot in the stomach a couple of times. His team leader gets shot. He's laying out under fire. He goes outside. He pulls his team leader back in. He patches the team leader up. Some of the indigs get shot. He pulls them into a house, establishes security around that, calls in a QRF before he passes out from losing blood. And it's got a really long name, and I wish I could remember it, man, but I'm getting old. But I tell him that, right? And I tell him that story about, this is a football game. This is a football game. We're down by 40 points. Nobody's shooting at you. Lives haven't been lost. It's not a bad day. What this individual went through was a bad day, and he rose above it, and he ended up getting awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Now, I was probably more prepared to tell it than I was on the spot, Robert. But those kids fired up. And I tell a few more when a buddy of mine got hit by a grenade, and and he comes around and he shoots a guy in the chest twice with a 40-millimeter grenade launcher, and blows that guy up, fighting in Syria. Kids love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They're all true stories that at the time when they just come out, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's a football game, and you can rise above this. And I think the result, at least of that one a few years ago, was they put up 28 points in the second half, and they thought they won the game.
Well, I think that's a sign of a great leader. It doesn't matter what you're leading or coaching, is that you have the experience to know how to take that person to their next step, not the, step 5 ahead, but that very next step, that very next win, that very next shift in state of mind to be able to go from, man, we're fucking losing right now, to like, let's go fucking crush this in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And to me, that's the sign of a great leader that can continually do that. And Mike, to your credit, not only with just 14, 15-year-old, but also with, Green Berets, full grown men, and everywhere in between, to be able to identify what their next step is and help them take it, whether that's to provide them the tools, sometimes it's just giving them the motivation, or anything in between.
Yeah. It's funny that we talk. Go ahead.
It's just being there, man.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you were at my change of responsibility when Wick took over. One of the things that I said, and I've always said, leaving leadership positions, is 90% of being a good leader is just showing up, right? Just being there. When the guys are training, when the guys are doing the hard things, and it's Saturday night, and, just showing up, man, and showing that you're there with them. And I've had a few, leaders in my time in the career in the Army that did that, and you never forget those guys. You know who else you don't forget? You forget You never forget the guys who don't show up, who put you out there to do the hard things, and then they go home at 1,700. And I think, I don't know, coaching and at least in teaching and coaching kids is a lot the same way. If they know you're out there sharing in their challenges, you're sharing in their victories, you're sharing in their defeats, man, they're gonna do anything you want for them.
Mike,
300%.
I don't know if you remember the story that you told me in the car one time about, and I think we shared it on another podcast episode, but it's kind of fitting too, about when guys are down, they didn't want to do something, and in this case, the command had been sent down orders that you guys had to go on, I don't know, police call or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And how you motivated the troops, and again, I
just told the truth, man.
Yeah.
I didn't motivate anybody. It was I forget who the Yusufik or Yusufik. It was Cleveland. General Cleveland was coming to 10th Group. General Cleveland was a former 10th Group commander, and he was known for like being a stickler on cleanliness, right? Like if he would get mad if he walked by and the windows were dirty when he was the group commander. I'm probably exaggerating, but as the guy leaves and goes away, all the commanders that come after him, they want to impress him. Like he's the 3-star now, and he used to be the 10th Group commander. He's the 10th Group commander that led us into Iraq. I think that those guys really, they wanted to impress him. And so anything that would go wrong, they were worried about. And Lane, you remember what the motor pools were like. It's old and there's freaking cracks in it. And anywhere there's a crack, there's weeds growing up in there. And Eric Brown was our battalion commander at the time. And Eric Brown's a stud. Everybody loves him. He's probably the most endeared battalion commander I've ever seen in 10th Group. After he's left, guys continue to stay in touch and reach out to him, and he's just a good friend of them. We had this big formation, and Eric's like, hey, we got to do this stuff, and they're coming down, and they're going to check the motor pool, and that's what they've given us. I just stood in front of the formation. I said, listen, I'm going to tell you to do some stupid shit today. I know it's stupid. You know it's stupid. But this guy standing next to me doesn't need to take the heat for it because there's a guy coming down to check the cleanliness of the motor pool. So I'm going to be down here. Let's just get it all done. Everybody starts laughing. They're all laughing because I think a lot of times in the Army, somebody would stand in front of you and try to sell you a load of shit and say, no, we're going to clean this because it's the Army. It's the right thing to do. I know it's stupid. They know it's stupid. And they also, I know they're going to do it. Right? So let's just be honest with each other. I think that's the story, Robert.
Yeah, that's the story. Yeah, but you were right. I think the fact that you were honest and the fact that you were willing to be right there next to him and stuff, these guys were willing to do whatever it is after that you're willing to sell them or tell them that they need to do. Because they've now bought into it from a leadership standpoint. They understand the path that they, how they've got to get there and everything, and I think this is a good leader, a good mentor, a good coach. It all has to go with understanding the people that you're trying to help, further and advance themselves, that there's going to be times that are good. There's going to be times that are bad. Right now, this is a bad moment, but we're going to get out of this. It's okay. We just got to go pull some weeds down the motor pool between the cracks. Not a life-ending thing here,
I don't know if I carried on that conversation with you that day. It's when I was in Atlanta, I think.
Yeah.
But a lot of that comes from, I didn't go to the Army Sergeant Major Academy, right? I went to Air Force school, and Air Force has a very, very different look at leadership and management than the Army does. And the way that they break that down is the Air Force teaches two different types of management: social management and task management. A task manager is somebody who'll do anything to get the job done. It doesn't matter if he's harsh, if he's toxic, if he's stepping on people. The end result of that is the job is done, so he's a successful manager or a leader. I think a lot of guys in the Army adopt that role. And a social manager does something completely opposite. They build a network around them of people who want to be successful and want to see you successful, and they do that through honesty and relationships. And I think that's all I was doing. As I'm going to be honest with you, I hadn't been there very long in position, so we need to build relationships that no matter what bad happens, that we're going to help each other be successful in this organization.
Yeah, and I think that an important, from my perspective, is that those leaders that are most successful, that people really endear and they'll follow them anywhere, is that leader knows exactly who they are as a guy, as a gal, as a person, and they don't let the role define who they are. They don't change. They may conform and bend a little bit based on the title, the role, and the responsibilities that they have to conduct
sure.
at that position, but they don't allow that to take control over who they are as a leader, as a person. And it's just time and time again, I've seen those team sergeants, command sergeant majors, that they operate from who they are first, and it shows. They perform better. People will follow them more because they're more authentic. They're honest. They communicate that to everybody, whether it's higher or lower. And those that conform to the role, it's felt. People can say like, oh man, and I don't want to say that they've changed, but people talk and they're like, oh, okay, all right. Well, they're definitely different. They're saying something when they were a team sergeant. Now they're a sergeant major. They're two different things, versus those other guys where, it's all in alignment.
Yeah. I think that's part of the challenge, even with individuals that get off active duty, though, is that they think the military defined them, and now they don't know how to then make that transition. And it's just, to me, it's the same thing that those guys who are successful, it didn't define them. They were individuals outside of the uniform. They knew who they were in their own skin. And I think that's whether you're 14 years old on a football field, or, you're 40 years old or 35 years old or even younger than that, that's getting out of the military. You can't let one thing define you. You can't let one bad moment on the football field define you. You've got to know who you are introspectively. You got to know what makes up, this person, because you're going to be a whole lot better off if you do understand that. And you'll understand then what's most important. And that's kind of that mindset that you were talking about in the very beginning.
Yeah. And if you don't know what you're about and you're listening to this, and the easiest way is to look at those that inspire you, because there's something there that resonates with you, that says, like we all look at leaders and like, man, that's a good leader. Like, well, why do we think that that's a good leader? Because there's some behaviors, there's some ways that they conduct themselves that really resonates. And then you can look to those that inspire you and then ask yourself, like, what about that kind of behavior inspires me? And how can I do more of that? And if you just do that on a continually day basis, then you're going to find that you're going to know exactly what you're made of, what resonates with you. And then you're going to be able to be that leader. And it's going to be your own remix. It's going to be your own style, because, that's leadership, is you see 20 different leaders and you pick and choose which elements or which behaviors or aspects, characteristics that really resonate with you, and then you just become that leader. And it's not just leadership, but that's how you can conduct life too. Is if you don't know where you're going, look at those that inspire you, and it may be not what they do, but how they do it. So and a mentor or a coach or a leader is going to help you, guide you on that process, because the advice that I just gave is pretty vague, but you have to take ownership and responsibility of your life. And those that do to the utmost are the most successful, are the most happy, most fulfilled. And I think that that's what a lot of people strive towards.
Yeah, I think that ownership is the first part of it as well, Lynn, is people owning whatever the problem is that they see in their life at that time. Because if you want to change something, it's because you're not happy with your current situation. If you're really successful and got everything you want, then you don't want to change that and go to anything different, because you're happy and comfortable in that position. So whatever stage you're currently at, owning the problems, the shortfalls, whatever you see it in your own head, and be aware that others might not see them as shortfalls or problems, and taking on that path, and like you said, having that focus to see where you want to go and what you want to achieve, and blocking out everything else, but starting with that ownership of I'm not comfortable where I am now, I need to change something, and then taking that action to do it, and don't expect anybody else to do it for you.
Yeah, you have to. It's your life. It's your life, bro.
Absolutely.
you gotta go after it. And I mean, there's so many routes, there's so many paths, but there's only one path for you, and you got to figure out what that is, and you got to grab your own balls and go for it.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges that I find as a parent as a, a coach or as a mentor is I don't want to see the other person fail, probably as much, if not more so, than the individual himself, because I just know that I made certain mistakes. And if you found your way around those mistakes and didn't make the same ones, you're going to be that further ahead. But I think what we all learned, though, through the cycle of life is that we may help them get around the first bend, but they're going to find a different challenge and maybe one you didn't experience around the next one. So, they're going to run into their own struggles and their own challenges. You just got them around one. You just steered them away from one of the things, but they're going to fall into something else. And maybe, that's what everybody needs to understand is that as we go through, we're going to have those forks in the road that are going to hit us all the time. And someone may have guided you down the right path one time, but you're just going to hit another path and another fork and another path. And you've got to keep making decisions, and some will be good, some won't. It's just part of the process, part of the whole learning process, part of the growth, part of how you get wisdom and you get gray hair like Mike.
Well, that's why principles and values are so important.
I don't have any gray hair.
No.
Just on your beard.
Yeah. You make it look really good, though.
Yeah. So take us back to the very beginning then, because I knew the two of you and Mike, discovered one another in 10 Special Forces Group. But how did that journey begin for you?
Yeah. So Mike was my command sergeant major for the battalion, and he was one of those leaders that everybody loved, respected, because the way he carried himself. Again, the aspects of a great leader that I spoke of before, Mike filled all those. And he was the guy that didn't change as far as the role or responsibility or whatever you want to call it. He was just a Green Beret that took that mentality from the teams and brought it to wherever he, found himself in our unit. And just Mike was great. And yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm humbled, but this is about you, man.
Yeah.
It's about you.
So what was your path to in the Army before joining 10 Special Forces Group?
Yeah. So I joined the Army 17, and I was an intel analyst because I got kind of swindled in by the Army recruiter talking about, hey, you're going to be gathering some intel on the ground and all this stuff. And 17 years old, I didn't know shit. So Germany was my first duty station. Was there for about 6 months, and it was like December time frame. Special Forces recruiter came to the post and dropped off some flyers and said, "Hey, you should join Special Forces. It's really cool." And so I went to the auditorium where they had the briefing at, and I walked in from the back, like most auditoriums, really old school, and they had this video of dudes falling from the sky, blowing shit up, shooting guns, all this really cool shit. And I'm like, man, that's what I signed up to do. And so I ended up signing up and going to selection and all that kind of stuff. Engineer 18 Charlie. And then did a couple tours to Iraq, 09, 010, 11. And then just started performing and learning and doing my best at every turn, in the early years of my SF career, and then which led to starting up the CRIF, going to a lot of schools, and doing some other stuff in Northern Africa, and so 8 years in Special Forces, and then I got out.
Okay, and so once you got out, what was the first thing that you kind of did? I mean, did you start off going right into the entrepreneurial route, or what was your transition like?
Yeah, so I had about a 12-month plan, and I was stationed in 110 Germany when we got out. So then we came back to the U.S., and my wife and I, we did a 3-month road trip across America.
Nice.
Spanning 37 states, seeing a lot of good friends and family. Started off in Colorado and basically went counterclockwise, and incredible journey of experience in the United States, different cultures, foods, and just a really incredible time. After that, my wife and I, we moved down to Panama for about a year and a half, and I just started to use the GI Bill, International Affairs. Florida State University has a satellite campus down there, and I knew that I was using the GI Bill, but I knew that I was starting this entrepreneur route, and this is where that failure comes in that we were talking about before. That I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew that I needed to try a lot of different things and experiment with different endeavors, projects, and I tried a lot of different stuff, and a lot of stuff didn't work out. And that's just the name of the game, that you keep going, you don't quit, and you look within and see what really makes you feel awesome or makes you feel fulfilled or happy, and it's a balance of fulfillment, making money, doing impact, and so that whole year and a half in Panama was it was kind of an interesting experience, because on one hand, my wife and I were continuing to travel, in South America, and having a good time exploring Panama and all it had to offer. While at the same time, I was, trying different stuff and looking within, and what am I really about? What am I really looking for? And it finally took my now business partner and co-author, Stephen Kuhn, which was recently on the podcast, to really help me with my journey. And that's what great leaders do. That's what great partners do, is see that thing that's within you that you may not even know what it is, to extract it and then help you bring it forth. And so since then, that year and a half in Panama, Stephen and I co-authored a book called Unleash Your Humble Alpha. We released that earlier this year. We're the leaders of that vetpreneur tribe that I spoke of earlier. And I'm currently, right now, as we record this, in San Diego, partnered up with a veteran-owned acupuncture business, where 4 veterans have teamed up to help the veterans in San Diego specifically with acupuncture healing and mental well-being, PTSD recovery, trauma recovery, all that kind of stuff. And just finding the route and finding how I can help in different endeavors in life. So
no, that's fantastic, man. I mean, it sounds like you've totally, found your purpose and where it is that you need to be. Not to mention the mentoring and coaching aspect of it that we talked about in the very beginning. You're able to do that and pass your advice and wisdom on to others who are going through the same challenges, especially as a veteran entrepreneur. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and for me, it's about the strategy of analogy. And so it's like, being in the military, being in special operations, having that high performance mindset. So how do you translate that principally into business or principally into life? And that's where I've really found part of my groove, if you will. Like, last week we had a meeting with 3 veterans and 4 doctors, doctors of different practices. And the conversation was just incredible, to where, one of the doctors was almost in tears. He said, "I've never found a team like this, or I never heard anybody talk like this, talk about purpose, talk about high performance, and mixing these kind of 2 elements together." Because we all hear the stories of, doesn't matter if it's athletes, business people, military professionals, that they're so focused on the task that they don't focus on the thing that can make them feel incredible or fulfill their purpose or passion in life. And it's a interesting balance to mix the 2 of high performance and purpose. And I personally believe that that's where everything's going. And it's great to have success. It's great to have a lot of money, a lot of accolades, whatever. But it's all going to be meaningless if we don't find that deeper mission within, whether it's your own individual mission or something that you create a team around you and have a more collective mission that can be bigger than yourself.
That's great. And you guys have created that. Again, maybe you need to tell folks, where they can find out more about what you and Stephen are doing, or if they're an entrepreneur that's a veteran and they want to join that group, where can they find that information?
Yeah, they can go to vetpreneurtribe.com, or they can look up Vetpreneur Tribe on Facebook. We have also a leading edge group called the Warrior Council, which is those that want to take business, and these are all for veteran entrepreneurs or military entrepreneurs. And our mission is to collaborate in small groups, in small communities, and to regain that camaraderie that we felt in the military. And that's part of my mission, is to create that bigger sense of purpose, something bigger than yourself. Because let's face it, when you leave the military, you have that bigger mission of protection of freedom, serving your country, and then you leave and you're like, man, what do I do now? Or what's my mission now? Or, I can do whatever the hell I want, but that once you experience that teamwork that you find in the military, that camaraderie, it's really difficult to slip into it. And so you have to be intentional about creating it for yourself. And so that's why we created the Warrior Council, is to help fill that role of bigger mission in life.
I know that Scott and I are, definitely a part of a lot of the stuff that you and Stephen are working for. You guys have, the right approach and how you're looking at things, and we're certainly enjoying the conversations that we've had. And with Scott with Veteran Owned UK and trying to help veteran entrepreneurs that are over there and creating a directory where people can find their products and services, to the Veteran Owned US site, which, Mentors for Military tried to set up so that we can do the same thing here within the US using a very similar platform. And then, shows like this, where we can try to pass on our knowledge and information to the veterans that are out there. So I think there are so many different angles and ways in which, if you're a veteran especially, or someone serving on active duty, there are resources available to you that we've been talking about here within this show to help you get your mindset right. If you're looking to get a business set up, if you're looking to, if you're already on your way, but you're just looking for coaching or a life coach, business coach, there are opportunities and there are people and resources out there that want to help you do that. So thanks so much, Lane, for joining us on the show. It's good probably for you to get a chance to see the old Sergeant Major. And
It was great talking to you, man. I know we tried to get together a couple times in the past, and our schedules just never lined up. So it was really good talking to you, Lane.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I get back to Colorado, we'll have to link up.
Right on.
All right. Thanks so much, Lane. Appreciate you coming on, brother.
Appreciate it.